And we're live. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. This is Yvonne here from My Halal Kitchen. And today I'm coming to you with a very special guest, Brother Marwan Ahmad, President of American Halal Council. Welcome, Brother Marwan. How are you today?
Thank you. Alaikum salam. How are you?
I'm doing really well. So you're in Washington, D.C. I'm in California. We're making this possible through the
coast.
beauty of technology. I am so happy to have you here today. Thank you so much for spending the time and also for asking me to be the newest board member of American Halal Council, for which I'm very proud and honored to be part of.
We're happy and honored to have you as well.
Thank you. And I'm here today to also just sort of let Brother Marwan talk about the American Halal Council, because it's a very important organization doing really important work on the education, research, and advocacy of halal. And so he's going to elaborate on all of that, and you'll understand why it's a very special organization to me. And I want you guys to all know more about it so that you can also come to support it and really understand the work that needs to be done and that we're working hard to get done. So let me tell you a little bit more about Marwan Ahmad, because he's a very experienced guy in this area, and he's going to enlighten us with a lot of really important stuff today. So Marwan Ahmad is the president of Arabesque Media, a Virginia-based marketing and event planning and management agency. He's also the president of the American Halal Council and a former president of the Arab American Business Council in Washington, D.C. He is the organizer of the Halal Expo and Summit since 2018 and has a degree in computer information systems and additional education in marketing, TV production, and nonprofit management. Very well. So you are in the right spot. And you had asked me to be part of the Halal Summit and Expo. That was a fantastic event. Thank you again for having me there. Okay. And you did such a fantastic job, you and your team, with that. So that's also another really important event in the halal space. So
yes, thank you for being with us. I mean, you contributed a lot to that event.
You really brought a lot of great people together, and it was a fabulous way to kind of get updated on what's going on in halal, and so there's always things changing, always things moving and being created and innovated. So it's an exciting space to be in.
It is, and honestly, I did not realize how much expertise we have in our community in the halal domain until we start organizing it. And alhamdulillah, we were able to attract a lot of important experts who know a lot about halal.
Yeah, mashallah, we're really blessed to have some really smart, well-educated, experienced people in this space and doing so much. And a lot of times I feel like, these are the things that I want our audience to know more about, because I focus a lot on recipes and putting out food information, but behind the scenes, all the stuff that's going on in halal is what's making all of that happen. So, so that brings us the notion of American Halal Council. And so I think if you could tell us a little bit more, what is the American Halal Council? Why was it started, created? What was your vision behind that? And just explain to everybody the what and the why there.
Sure. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Allahumma shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Well, when I started organizing the Halal Expo and Summit back in 2018, and I got to know more about halal products, halal services, halal businesses. The more I got involved, the more I realized that there's nothing that can bring all these people together. I mean, we did the once a year event, which was good. People liked it. But after that, and between the expos, there's nothing. You just went into a vacuum, basically. So I thought we have a lot of expertise who attended and presented, spoke. People come from business backgrounds, governmental, nonprofits. Why not continue? Exactly. Why not put them together in one organization and we can serve the community?
Yes.
So end of 2019, I started, reaching out to people. and everybody was excited and motivated. Alhamdulillah, by January of this year, 2020, we launched the organization. We registered as a nonprofit charitable organization, and we are in business. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. That's not an easy feat either, to come up with all of those things, and then the mission behind it. And that's what drew me into working with you, Brother Marwan, is the mission. Can you tell us that very important mission behind American Halal Council?
Absolutely. So American Halal Council is not only about food. Food is an important factor and component of halal, but it's all about halal lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
We as Muslims want to live a halal lifestyle, and it's all angles, whether it's what we eat, how we conduct ourselves in personal life, in business, and in many ways. So the American Halal Council basically promotes halal lifestyle. Yes, the business and food are important components. The consumer is our backbone, because we are here to serve the Muslim consumer. And we count on the Muslim consumers to defend them, and we count on the consumer to also support us. Excuse me. So the mission is to promote halal lifestyle according to the Sharia and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's our main goal.
And I'm so glad you're so consumer centric in your explanation, because that's really where it all is. I always tell my audience, you guys have so much power to change things. We're sort of like agents, we're sort of like tools in this industry, but the consumer is the driving force. You guys have a say, so it's really important. It's in your best interest to to really support this education and research and advocacy that's going on, but to also be educated yourself about all of that. So I think that these conversations we're having right now are very important, because my next question kind of goes into that halal market research that we've talked quite a bit about. And what does that research mean for the consumer, the halal consumer?
So if the consumer knows, the Muslim consumer knows the details of halal food especially, and how it's processed, how it's packaged, how it's transported and distributed, they will be very cautious about what they buy from the market, even if it's labeled halal, even if it's certified. Not to say that those certifications are no good, but there is no streamlines of this process. Everybody does it their way. Everybody does it based on their understanding. Not a lot of Sharia compliance involved, and sometimes not even holistic or cleanliness is involved. And we want to protect the consumer, and we want to give them what they deserve. And because when they buy halal, they understand that they're buying the best product out there.
Those are some really important points.
Yes, and therefore we wanted to do a research, and this research will help us understand the halal market and the halal consumer. What does halal consumer want? What does the halal consumer not want and not care for? And the reason for the research is putting this data together, and I'm going to explain how this is going to help the consumer at the end. We want to understand where halal products and services is sold, who's buying it, what is the most that consumer is buying. Are they buying more food? Are they buying more cosmetics? Are they looking for halal tourism? Are they looking for halal finance? What is the hot and best halal product out there? And according to a recent report, international report, number one halal product sought by halal consumer is halal finance. Just no interest financing, more than food, believe it or not. It's a much bigger market. Food comes next, then cosmetics, then tourism, then many other things that we can get into, which will be involved in our research. So what we did is we contracted with a research institute, a reputable research institute, to conduct such research among Muslims and this is the good part, also among non-Muslims, because we believe non-Muslims also consume halal and look for it.
They do. They really do.
Yes, and even though it's not widely spread consumption, but it's growing consumption. If we think there is 8 to 10 million Muslims in the US today, my guess, and this is not part of the research yet, but I think we will confirm it with the research, there are as many non-Muslims who consume halal in the US, which means this will double the number of consumption. What does this mean to the consumer? If we can prove with data and numbers that there's so much demand for halal, more American companies, Muslims or non-Muslims, but halal certified, will produce halal. The more halal is produced, the lower the price of halal will be.
Yes.
The more availability on the shelf it will be. You will find it in mainstream shopping malls and centers and grocery stores. Islam and Islamic lifestyle and halal lifestyle becomes more accepted as a mainstream concept among Muslims and non-Muslims. But we cannot go to big companies, big box, and tell them, look, there is huge demand. We're talking billions and billions of dollars, unless we have that research in our hand to show them in numbers and data that it exists.
And also that the integrity is protected. And I know that's a huge part of the mission of American Halal Council, is to protect that integrity. I think that it's such an important point, because I have sadly heard many Muslims sometimes just feel disillusioned with halal. Like, I'm talking about the food, when they go to stores and they just question, is this really halal, and all of that. So that's a sad reality, and that's why I really love what American Halal Council is doing in the integrity part.
Yes, and I agree with you. If you look at our mission statement, we want to follow the ethical halal standards, not just any halal standard, not any standards, has to be ethical halal standards. And again, not only in products, but also in behavior. Mm-hmm. How do we conduct business with each other? When we buy and we sell, how do we act as Muslims? This is part of halal lifestyle. And I know the stigma of the word halal is all about meat and food.
Right.
We wanted to reach out to everybody and say it's much more than that. I think they know that. Many people did not think about it, beyond food in many aspects.
Well, someone is saying that there's no sound, but I'm thinking that most people are hearing us. Let me just do a double check here to see. Can other people just verify that you do hear us? Please leave a comment. Let me just, sorry about that interruption. I just want to make sure we're good. I think we're okay. Let me just, sorry about that interruption. I just want to make sure we're good. Okay, and they're saying they can hear. Okay, I think maybe it was just one person's own sound. Yes, so let's talk then about, this is, I think, a good segue into verification versus certification, because even that was something I was a little confused about. When we look at halal certified products, we're looking for a label that says somebody has certified that this product has been processed and in a halal way, and that actually most people don't realize the processing part. They just look at the ingredients part, but there's a lot that goes into putting a label on. But can you explain the verification aspect of halal?
Yes, and this is an area that we as American Halal Council are proud to spearhead halal verification, which is different from halal certification. If anybody goes to our website, there is a colorful diagram that explains the difference between halal certification and halal verification. But to put it simply, halal certification involves the process from the animal slaughter, going through the processing and packaging, and then a Muslim company comes and certifies that this was slaughtered Islamically, and they follow the Sharia rules and everything, until it leaves the factory with that certification. At that point, it is halal certification. From the factory, going to the distribution, then going to the retail store, and sitting on the shelf at the retail store, we call that halal verification. And the reason for that is we want to make sure that if something that has a halal label, halal certified, it is authentically been certified. The problem with many halal products, and unfortunately I have to say most halal products in the market today, are not properly labeled. The USDA and FSIS, which is the government agency that's in charge of labeling in general and making sure the labels is authentic and there is no cheating involved, have rules on how halal certified products should look like. And in many cases, these rules are not followed, and nobody is overseeing this, nobody is authenticating this. Halal verification will allow us to verify the source of the product, where it came from, and who certified it. This information is critical for the consumer to know. Having that etch on the package, or halal in Arabic language, or halal certified, is not enough. And many people can print this and stick a label on a package, or whatever it is, food, cosmetics, and otherwise. We want the consumer to feel assured that there's an organization like American Halal Council that is doing the job and verifying that product has been properly certified by an authentic Islamic organization or company. And this is what halal verification is. I'm gonna put on the chat, and I can post also on Facebook comment, what is the ruling of halal label should look like. And the major thing is it should mention who certified it. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't mention who certified it, it's a violation of USDA and FSIS rules. These are government regulations. And we are trying to reach out to many retail stores and tell them, look, what you're doing is not accurate, not correct, and if they don't correct it, we will have to take action to protect the consumer.
And just to clarify, that doesn't mean that the government is involved in saying what is halal.
No, they don't care if it's halal or not.
Right.
What they care about, that there's no misconduct, no cheating took place.
That's very important. So that's, again, protecting the integrity of the halal industry itself as a whole. It's really keeping people accountable, which is a very Islamic thing to do. There's nothing wrong about that. We need to uphold integrity, justice, and all of those things. And I think anytime something is very new, I mean, think about it. Halal is quite new in this country, so there were a lot of kinks to be worked out. There were a lot of channels to go through and things that people had to learn. And the very early pioneers of bringing halal as a label in this country, had open ground. They really paved the way. But there are all kinds of things to be learned in this process throughout those years. I mean, around what time, do you know around what year or time period halal really first became certified, like a certification label in this country? I'm not really sure about that.
So one of our advisors on the Halal Council, American Halal Council, is a former retired USDA FSIS employee, and he helped actually write the what they call halal policy. Mm-hmm. That was the first halal policy that was written. I believe it was sometimes in the 90s. But halal policy is not halal law. It's a general policy.
Very important to distinguish.
Conduct that needs to be, observed by businesses. However, that having a halal policy by USDA, a U.S. government agency, means we can hold accountable businesses who don't follow this policy. Mm-hmm. And labeling of halal product is part of that policy. And the label has to say who certified the product. Many businesses buy in bulk from a factory or meat factory or slaughterhouse, and they bring it to their business. This business might not be totally, halal, means owned by non-Muslims. They sell pork products in the same slaughter or butcher shop. And they open that box and they repackage it into a smaller packaging boxes. Mm-hmm. Guess what happens? It contaminates the package and the food. That means the certification is null and void. Therefore, the kitchen needs to be certified now, to be halal certified. You see what's happening now? If it's something bought and it's already prepackaged and it's certified and sold as is, that's fine.
It's much easier too.
Yeah. Once you open that package and repackage it, that needs to be recertified as well as the kitchen that has been used. Now, you mentioned something about the U.S., this halal being new in the U.S. Relatively, yes. However, again, in the international report on halal that we got recently, the U.S. is the largest exporter of halal in the world. Number one.
Wow.
And of course, that consumption goes to the Muslim world.
Right.
At the same time, many of the halal products sold in the US are not labeled halal. US companies sell halal products sometimes, but they don't label them because they don't think in the US people care to have that label. But if we convince the consumer who is watching us today to ask for that label and to make sure it's halal and it's verified, more and more stores will be putting halal labels on an already halal certified food.
I think that is such a valid point because I've been in this food industry like 12 years, and I've seen so many companies at different trade shows and so on that sell meat, and they are halal, but nobody knows that they're halal. And I always wondered, was it because they didn't want to say that they're halal because of any backlash? But really what it came down to was that they said, it doesn't seem like the halal consumer really cares to demand it. So I think there's a communication gap, really. I think consumers don't really understand the voice that they have, how important and powerful it is. And many people do call companies and ask questions and so on, but there needs to be more of a collective kind of ask. I think American companies, for one, are really responsive. If they get a lot of people asking, they will respond to the market demand. They will do their research and they'll come up with a business decision that makes sense. And there's so many Muslims who really want quality halal meat.
Absolutely. It's all about supply and demand.
Sure.
The more the consumer requests halal, or even just ask the store manager, do you have halal? Just a question. Mm-hmm. The more these questions they hear, I guarantee you they will start carrying halal. Yes. And I saw a comment on Facebook just made right now. Somebody said this could be confusing. Mm-hmm. I agree. It's confusing because nobody is overseeing this process. Nobody is neutral judge or organization until now is out there to make sure the process is clear, explained very well to the consumer, also explained very, very well to government as well as businesses, and we're all on the same page. And
right.
That's what we're trying to do as an organization.
And that same person also asked the question of how do you know about halal certifiers. That's also, she's seeing there's so many certifications. How can consumers know what to trust? But that goes back to what you had been saying previously was, the work that we're trying to do.
Well, certifiers in other parts of the world, they follow halal standards.
Mm-hmm.
So either a government agency or a group of certifiers come together and agree what is a halal standard should look like and should be followed. And they all follow that standard. In the US today, there is no halal standard. And sometimes, in many cases, even different countries have different halal standards based on their understanding of the Sharia or the madhab they follow, and so on. However, I think most follow the basic rule. It has, to be, you have to say the Islamic saying, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. It has to be slaughtered, and bled, so it will be out of, the blood. And follow all the Sharia compliance. We are not a scholar organization, and we don't claim to be, imams, but we are here to protect. We are here to take the Sharia understanding and apply it to be fair and to be clear for everybody.
Right, and also the point that just because there are no unified standards doesn't mean that people are not operating on halal. They are. There's different variations in the madahib, right? In the schools of thought. And that's something sometimes where I feel people get really tripped up in, who's right, who's wrong. It's just the fact that things are not unified as standards doesn't mean anybody's doing anything wrong. It's just that they need to kind of maybe one day come together to form a standard. And it's much easier with Muslim countries having the standards because, like you said, most of the time that country would follow a particular madhab, so it's easier to formulate the standard.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. And to try to resolve this issue, we are in discussion with the USDA and FSIS as we speak. Just this morning, we're talking to them, and we're talking to halal certifiers in the US. We're also talking about the OIC that creates international halal standards.
Organization in Islamic countries.
Yes, we're all talking to each other, trying to create a basic rule and understanding of what halal standards should look like, and it should be applied across the board.
Right. It's really important work. Very important work. So in terms of 2020, this is the year that American Halal Council started. It's very new. What are some of the things that were accomplished this year? And I came on sort of the end of the year, so
yes. So it was different. We started in the COVID time.
A lot of things happened during COVID.
So we had a plan. This plan had to change, and we had to work around the situation. So we did not freeze our work. We did not go into sleep mode. We actually went into creative mode. So what we did, number one, when the COVID started and people, were afraid to go shopping, first program we implemented, and before anybody else, at least in our area, is we mobilized our community in the Washington, D.C. area, Virginia, Maryland, to distribute halal food to seniors. That was the first step. And we worked with Mass, and we worked with ICNA, and we worked with the Fairfax County, and we worked with other organizations and governmental agencies to implement a distribution process. And once we felt this process was in place and it's moving automatically and it has a process, we stepped back and let those organizations who specialize in food and distribution take over. And this campaign is still going. So that's the first thing. The second thing we did, and within a few weeks, we bought hundreds of face shields, not the masks you wear, the plastic shield you put in your face, and we distributed them to over 100 halal stores in six major cities.
That's great.
We had, alhamdulillah, volunteers in these major cities. We shipped mask, the shields, and we sent it to those stores. And the main purpose for those shields were to protect the workers, but also to protect the consumer. Everybody was still afraid, very afraid, and not knowing what's going to happen and how contagious this disease is, and how can I go shopping? Is it safe to go shopping? Right. So we thought, let's take the initiative. So that was our second campaign, right immediately when COVID started.
Wow. And those stores are a service to the community. I mean, food is essential. So we needed to keep the workers safe, the consumers safe, so that everyone could get food that they needed to feed their families. So it's a really important initiative and very smart thing to do.
These are essential workers, just like pharmacies and hospitals. Food is essential. And we wanted to protect the consumer who's going shopping. We wanted to protect the worker in the back. And and it's very few cases, but I have to say it. When we went to stores that have butchers in the back, okay, and we noticed that they're not protected enough. We made sure that those butchers in the back have the shields, wearing gloves, and we educated them, and we told them how important, how critical, not only for the consumer, also their image to the consumer when they're standing back and not protected. So alhamdulillah, we did our part. We left the rest to them to move on, and I think it was also one of our successful campaigns.
That's great, because also in the beginning of COVID, it was very confusing for everybody what to do. I mean, most people aren't used to covering like that, or even the whole glove issue can be confusing for people who wear them and then still touch everything else. I mean, people were just not used to operating like that. It's even hard sometimes when I go out with a mask. I tend to, be a little confused sometimes, because it's a new way of life. So to get right in there to the stores was such a brilliant service to do.
Yes, thank you. And to just continue on the accomplishments of 2020, we had a case of a Muslim media personality who works with a major media outlet in Washington, D.C. She worked in the radio division. She's a hijabi, and she wanted to move to the TV, to be in front of TV and become an anchor. And she was very qualified. And every time she applied to be promoted to TV, she was denied. And a co-worker, supervisor, kind of privately told her the reason they're not promoting you is because you're wearing hijab, and this does not follow the image of the station, the TV station. So she approached us and said, "This is my situation. I am suing my employer. I just need community support. I need the organization support. I want to feel that I have somebody standing with me." So we endorsed her case, and we issued a press release with 4 other organizations nationally, among them the Muslim Legal Fund of America and ICNA for Justice, and 2 other organizations. And we're proud that we took that position to stand with the hijabi, because we believe hijab is part of a halal lifestyle that we need to protect.
Again, going back to just not just supporting the notion of halal food, but other things, finance,
right,
clothing, protecting the integrity of halal.
Exactly. It's a whole, an overall lifestyle that we need to observe, basically, as Muslims, because everything we do should be halal.
And that's a great segue to the next question I have about advocacy. So we even had a question pop up on our feed about, someone saying, well, when it comes time to explain halal, most people don't want to take the time to do it or take that responsibility. It's a lot of work. Like how can we sort of make that easier when talking to retailers or whoever it is about what halal is? So I think that's a good point to explain the advocacy part of what American Halal Council sets out to do?
It's a good question that is being raised. The good news is most non-Muslims we talk to about halal, and we ask them the simple question: are you familiar with the term halal? I can tell you 90% said yes. They may not know what's the details of what is halal. That's fine. At least we are at 10%, not zero. They are aware of the term halal. And when we ask them, what does halal mean to you? Again, these are non-Muslims. They told us, we believe it's healthy and it's good product. When we see halal, that's the impression we get. So it has a positive impact. So our role as an organization is to advocate more of this notion. When somebody sees the label halal, they know it's a good quality product. Mm-hmm. That's on the consumer part. Advocacy with government agencies. As I mentioned earlier, we continue to work with the government, especially USDA and FDA and FSIS, who are involved in this in the overseeing of halal and other, of course, everything, including halal, and making sure that everything is within regulations. To advocate for halal, we want to go beyond halal policy with the government. We wanted to make it halal regulation. We want states to adopt halal regulations as well. We want to introduce halal regulations to different states.
What does that exactly mean? Sorry to interrupt you, but what can you, before going on, what do you mean by that part?
So 15 states around the country now have halal regulations, meaning if somebody uses the label halal, with that symbol halal on a package, it has to be authentic, it has to be certified, and it has to follow certain rules. It varies from state to another, but they have halal regulations. We want to push the same regulations or similar regulations in other states, so every state will have the same halal regulations. So there will be more protection to halal. The consumer feels safe when they buy halal that is truly halal and it's verified halal. So we're working with the federal government now, and we also wanted to work with the localities. So any Muslim who lives in a certain city or state that may or may not have halal regulations, we want to work with them to reach out to the government and say, I'm with the American Halal Council, and we would like to introduce new legislation to protect halal label or halal product.
And again, that doesn't mean that they would have any notion to come in and say what is halal, but just to protect what has already been agreed upon within the halal community, basically.
Right. Actually, in some states, the halal regulations are more advanced than the federal halal policy.
Oh, and wow.
You go into more details, and they're more, controlled process, and that's what we'd like to see more happening. One of the things that consumers deserve to know, and I think this is something that's going to be a big topic going forward, is even if it's halal certified, the consumer wants to know, was it hand slaughtered zabiha?
Yes.
Or is it machine slaughtered? Or was it stunt?
Yes.
Right now, there are halal certifiers who will certify any of these, or some of these, or only one of these three. The consumer deserves to know. What we would like to do through our halal verification is when the consumer sees the halal label, it should have that information. Mm-hmm. Hand slaughtered, machine slaughtered, or stunt. So then the consumer, based on their madhab or belief, mm-hmm. can decide is that considered halal to him or not, or her.
Because that's like the number one question everybody has when they go to get meat, unless you're in an area where they'll say zabiha halal, and most people understand that to be hand slaughtered. But it's just like, it's so tiring for people to go into a store and to ask a million questions, or to call a company, and and for people on the other end, it would make so much sense to streamline the process and to say, you know what, according to your madhab, this is, you can choose. It's not saying anybody's right or wrong or whatever, but they're all halal. Pick the one that suits you the best.
Exactly. You just said it right. We don't want to tell people what is right and wrong and what they should believe because they might have a different madhab than other people. What we wanted to give them is transparency. We want to provide the information, and then the consumer can decide if in their madhab this is halal or not.
Exactly.
It's up to them. That's their choice.
And someone is asking right now about hospitals, Allah forbid, how many people are in the hospital right now. They're asking, have we reached out to any hospitals to create halal food service for the patients and how to encourage hospitals to do this on an organizational level?
Well, the good news is there was a piece of news a few months ago about a hospital that on their own decided to serve halal food to Muslim patients. The reason is because they get enough business from Muslims.
Right.
So they hired a Muslim chef who prepares, halal meals for the Muslim consumers or patients in this case, which is excellent.
Yes.
Today, there is also a movement to provide or give the right to Muslim inmates to request halal food in prisons, which is very important movement. But to answer that question, are we working with other hospitals? We'd like to work with more. We'd like to talk to more hospitals, but we also need the consumers' help. Let's say you live in an area that a hospital serves a lot of Muslim, but they don't serve halal. Reach out to us, and we will communicate with that hospital and have a discussion with them and a meeting and tell them how it will make business sense to them to serve halal.
It's so true. A little bit goes a long way in this country. I remember before I started my halal kitchen, I was a patient at Advocate Lutheran General in outside of Chicago, and I noticed how much the doctors and nurses were trying to cater to the whole lifestyle thing. Like me wanting a female doctor, or like the food. You kind of feel like, oh gosh, I don't want to be so demanding and picky, because you're in it. But I wasn't a life-threatening situation, so it's a little different. But at the same time, they were so receptive to wanting to understand. They were kind of confused or questioning, but they were so nice about wanting to know and how they could do better, that when I got out of the hospital, I went back and I said, can I talk to somebody here, because you guys were so incredible that made me feel like you really tried to understand and try to help me the best you could, and maybe we could have a conversation about how that can be done for future patients, because they were confused. They had other Muslim patients who weren't asking anything, and I realized that it might have been a language issue, a language barrier, or anything, or maybe they were just shy to ask or whatever. We don't know the situation. But after that, the hospital then opened up. They allowed me to talk to the emergency room doctors. We had a meeting. We had a meeting with the nurses. We talked about food. We talked about Islamic customs related to men and women, or covering, or all this stuff. They just wanted to understand better, and that was something that they were then planning to implement in their system. So I think that I'm just one person. I wasn't part of an organization at the time, but then the local masjid got involved and they did a volunteer program. It was awesome. It just became this, little by little, it was just opening up communication. And I think that's something that consumers sometimes get overwhelmed with not really knowing what steps to take, but sometimes it's just a phone call.
Right, exactly.
Now they can start to reach out to American Halal Council as well and say, these are things happening. How can we help? And we can be part of that solution for people who are commenting and saying, this is very confusing and overwhelming sometimes.
Yes, so. Yes. And you're absolutely right, Yvonne. When I saw that article about a hospital that started serving halal, I immediately searched that hospital, found their number, called them up, and thanked them for introducing halal food to the hospital. And I think places like this need to hear from many Muslims, because the more positive feedback they get, the more they will be encouraged to continue the service. And if they don't, somebody might come and convince them otherwise,
Yes.
and they might discontinue it. So
Right.
it's important to be proactive. Don't see something you like and just say, okay, great, somebody did the job, good for them.
Right.
Thank them so they feel that, oh, there is another consumer who cares, and they come to us and they shop, or they come to our hospital or facility. And so in order to keep them happy, we need to continue the service. Because there are many cases, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, many cases where mainstream stores started selling halal, and not enough Muslims were buying.
Yeah.
They discontinued selling them.
That's the thing. That's the follow through. We say we want things, and then we have to support with our dollars. I mean, I understand that the price differences can be an obstacle sometimes, but let's think also long term of our next generation. If we want to make this stuff still available for the next generation to have, we kind of have to make some sacrifices now so that our kids and grandkids can have this as norm and at a much more affordable price than it is now. And I don't, things aren't that bad, in terms of prices, but I think that it also depends. It depends, where people are shopping and all of that. But people, I'm always telling my audience this, people who create the halal products, for one, there's a lot that goes into those things. There's a lot of imagination and innovation and money and research, and to put that out there in the market is a service, but it needs to be supported for it to sustain. And that's why I've seen so many great products come and go, and it makes me sad because people come in it with all this passion and oomph to have this thing available as in a halal format, and then where does it go? So I hope that this will be the start of a refreshing conversation that will get people excited again about supporting halal, because that's what it would really need to do.
Absolutely. And speaking of new generation, I think somebody just posted about schools, public schools.
Oh, okay.
I agree. Schools are like hospitals. Any public service locality, we need to communicate with them if there is enough Muslim students in a school that they need to serve halal food to the students. Yes. And that's important. And maybe for them a prayer room for Jum'ah if they want to pray. I know in our area, some Muslim student associations in high schools and universities have prayer space for Jum'ah, and they do Jum'ah as well. So our work goes hand in hand with what the consumer wants, and we're here to help and serve. So if you have a wish about halal, whether in school, hospital, or any other place, reach out to us and tell us what you would like to happen, and we will work with you to try to bring it to your area.
And we're working on 2021 as we speak. And so we have this end of year campaign going on for 2020. I've been posting it a few times on my Facebook, and I want to thank all of you guys for supporting that campaign, even before hearing this conversation. So thank you so much. And Brother Marwan, can you tell us more about what those end of year donations could mean for next year and some of our plans going forward?
Absolutely, Yvonne. Number one issue on our agenda is our halal research, because even though it's something that's not going to touch the consumer immediately today, but in a short time, within a year, maybe less, they will feel the impact. Like I mentioned earlier in this discussion, once the data of the halal research is out and we show that how much consumption in numbers to the American companies, they will start producing more halal. Muslim consumer will find more halal in stores. The prices will drop.
Yes.
What you pay $1 for, you might get it for 75 cents because there are more of it. That only can happen through the research. The research will cost between 85,000 to 100,000. And so this is one of our campaigns and or one of our programs. We want to do many other things, but which will take funding to conduct. The working with advocacy, reaching out to government officials, reaching out to retail stores, educating the businesses, educating the consumer, protecting the consumer, protecting every Muslim who want to buy halal costs money, and we're all volunteers here. But if we have the funding, we can hire people to do this full time and to protect the Muslim full time, and there will be less confusion, there will be less misunderstanding, less cheating if there's some cheating here or there. And it takes an organization that's independent and that is non-profit, charitable, to do this kind of work. Mm-hmm. And we're the only halal organization in the US today that's doing this work. Everybody else doing the work out there, halal certifiers and otherwise, 90%, if not more, are for-profit businesses, which is fine. We have no problem with that. People can benefit and make a living. But we are the organization that has no stake in the game. We're not doing this for profit. We're doing it to protect our families and your family. But we need the support of the community to grow this organization through research, advocacy, education, and going out there and protecting you.
Yes, mashallah, mashallah. It's a beautiful initiative, and I've posted the link for anybody who would like to donate again or share with your family and friends. Please do that. Even if you can't donate, even $1, would help. Every little bit counts. So, we're really depending on everybody to support the mission and, just understand what we're doing, share this video with your family and friends so that they get to learn more about American Halal Council and the work that's being done and planned and the mission behind it. And, and give us your feedback. That's what I think this is a great conversation to have with everyone. And hopefully we can do more of this in the future too.
Yes, and I'd like to invite everybody to visit our website, AmericanHalalCouncil.org. You will learn who we are, what we do, who stands behind this organization and initiative, and some of the expertise we have on our boards, advisories are just impressive, experts in this field. They're not only they're passionate, but they're also experts in what they do. Yuvan is one of them. And that speaks loud of who we work with. So we hope that you support us, and so we can grow this, for you together.
I've learned so much from you already, and also Brother Habib. He has been a mentor for me for a long time as well. So, I would encourage everybody to like the American Halal Council Facebook page. I'll put a link to that page here too, because you're going to have more videos on that page as well, right? We're going to post other things, other videos, interviews, and so on to continue educating people about what American Halal Council is doing, right?
Absolutely. We have a very ambitious program or programs in 2021, mm-hmm. and we're going to do a lot of education like this. Our plan to reach out to many communities, to do, social media, YouTube. It takes time. And we're up to the task, inshallah.
We have some exciting things. I think we really some fun things being planned, and I think there's a lot of stuff that the youth and millennials will be really excited about. So I think that it's particularly those foodies out there that I know who who are always posting, their love of halal food and everything, and they think they're going to love some of the stuff we have going on next year.
Great. And one last comment I'd like to make, Yvonne, before we conclude. On our page, there is a complaint form. If you go to any place or you see any product that you have any suspicion about it being halal, just fill out the form or call us and let us know. And we will investigate and find out if there is any conduct or taking place. We're not a police, but we wanted to work with the stores, with the manufacturers, and everybody to make sure that information is being transparent and authentic.
That's a very important point because we're all all in the same team, right? We just want to see everything working well for everybody. You know, if consumers are happy, then businesses are happy. We need to make this a very harmonious industry.
Right, exactly, exactly. And we're here to serve, We're like many organizations out there that serve the Muslim community. We're here to do the same thing. Our specialty is in the halal. So take the time if you suspect something and don't hesitate, to reach out to us. We'd be happy to talk to you.
Right. Well, is there anything else that you would like to add, Brother Marwan?
Just follow what we do. If you're passionate about halal, we are here to serve you and to also educate others who may be on the borderline and they find this process confusing. We want to make it clear and we want to make it safe for everybody, inshallah.
Can we answer one last question? Do you mind? It's a pretty good one, if you don't mind. Going back to legislation and so on, a sister is asking, if people want to help bring halal into their own state's legislation, how can they work with AHC to help develop that initiative? It's a good question.
With the government and advocacy?
Yeah, state government.
So if you want to initiate anything within your state, reach out to us and we will have a discussion about it and see how can we reach state officials to discuss introducing halal legislation. They may already have in their state and they may not know about it. So reach out to us, and inshallah we can talk about it more.
Right. Okay. Well, if we have any more questions that come in, we can certainly try to answer them offline. But keep your questions coming. If you'd like to watch this video again later and come up with questions, just add your comments and questions on the Facebook page or the YouTube channel, whichever you're watching it from. So I want to thank you again, Brother Marwan, for joining us and enlightening us with all this very important information about American Halal Council. And I hope you'll be back and we can talk about new things in 2021 when the time comes. Inshallah.
Thank you, Yvonne, and you're doing amazing work. Keep it up, and we're looking forward to work with you and your, followers.
Inshallah. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next time. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.